Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our showing of High Noon, 1952, the second film in our current miniseries, Hollywood's Greatest Heroes, produced by Stanley Kramer and directed by Fred Zinnemann, with Gary Cooper as our hero Marshal Will Kane and Grace Kelly. The screenplay was by Carl Foreman, inspired by The Tin Star, a story by John Cunningham published in Collier's Magazine in 1947. The famous score was composed by Dmitri Tiomkin. The film was deeply controversial against the background of the ongoing Red Scare and the Korean War. In 1952, during the film's production phase, its screenwriter, Foreman, was summoned to appear before the HUAC during its investigation of communist propaganda and influence in the movie industry. Although Foreman had once been a member of the Communist Party, he refused to expose any other members. When he was named an uncooperative witness by the committee, he was promptly blacklisted, leading Stanley Kramer to demand that their partnership on High Noon be dissolved. Foreman sold his share of the partnership and moved to England, knowing that he was no longer employable in the U.S. John Wayne was the first actor to be offered the lead role, but turned it down because he believed that Foreman's story was an obvious allusion to blacklisting, which he actually supported. Wayne later said that he never regretted having helped run Foreman out of the country. Gary Cooper shared Wayne's conservative political views and had been a friendly witness before the HUAC, but had not named any names. Ironically, it was Cooper who won the Oscar for the role of Marshal Kane. High Noon was the most influential Western of the 50s because it changed society's image of the Western genre. The traditional format of the Western was that of a strong male character, leading the civilized against the uncivilized. But in this Western, the civilized people failed to support their leader. The film's theme song, High Noon, also known as Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling, became a major hit on the country and Western charts for Tex Ritter and on the pop charts for Frankie Laine. Its popularity set a precedent for theme songs featured in many subsequent Western films. The music was considered revolutionary for the times. Most movies at that time started with a fanfare. This one began with a ballad. High Noon was a milestone in recording. It introduced the idea of a theme song which could be marketed separately from the film and could also be referenced repeatedly throughout it. Tiomkin's score and song were so popular, they put him in demand to score many future Westerns. When High Noon opened, some critics actually scoffed at the unorthodox rescue of the key character by the heroine. Alfred Hitchcock himself stated that Kelly's performance was mousy and lacking in animation, and that it was not until her later films that she finally showed her star quality. High Noon's story has often been repeated in later films, and its ending has inspired those of many others, including Westerns. It was both financially and artistically successful and earned $12 million on an investment of $730,000. The film was nominated for 7 Oscars and won 4: Best Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best Score, and Best Black and White Editing. The movie was one of the first 25 films to be chosen for inclusion in the National Film Registry. Several U.S. presidents chose High Noon as their favorite film, including Eisenhower, Reagan, and Clinton. Clinton said, "It's no accident that politicians see themselves as Gary Cooper in High Noon. Not just politicians, but anyone who's forced to go against the popular will." And it was Reagan's favorite because of Kane's strong support for the law. John Wayne, on the other hand, considered High Noon the most un-American thing I've ever seen in my whole life. In 2008, the American Film Institute ranked High Noon second on its list of the 10 greatest Westerns. High Noon was filmed at several sites in California. The opening scenes under the credits were filmed at Iverson Movie Ranch near LA. A few town scenes were filmed in Columbia State Historic Park, a preserved gold rush mining town near Sonora, California. Exterior shots of the Hadleyville Church were filmed at St. Joseph Church in Tuolumne City. The railroad used was the old Sierra Railroad in Jamestown, a few miles south of Columbia, known as the Movie Railroad. The railroad station was built for the movie alongside a water tower at Warnerville, California. The running time of the story almost perfectly parallels the running time of the film and was intensified by frequent shots of clocks marking the time until noon, reminding the characters and the audience that the villain will soon be arriving. As the tension progresses, the clocks get bigger. Plot summary. It's the late 1860s in a little town called Hadleyville, New Mexico Territory, population 650. Despite the disapproval of his Quaker bride and of his townspeople, the town marshal must face a gang of deadly killers alone. Initially, he decides to leave town with his new wife, but soon realizes he must return to protect the town from the gang's leader, who rides into town on the local railroad train at noon. When he seeks the help of the townsfolk, they turn their backs on him. He must face the villains alone. Fun facts about the film. Cooper wore no makeup to emphasize his character's anger and fear. This look was intensified by pain from his recent surgery to remove a bleeding ulcer. Kelly was 21 years old and Cooper was 60 at the time of filming. It was not uncommon in the industry to have such a wide age spread between two principal characters. Tex Ritter said that the highlight of his career was when he sang High Noon at the Academy Awards ceremony when it won Best Song. The smoke billowing from the train was a sign that its brakes were failing, but Zinnemann and his cameraman didn't know it and barely got out of the way in time. Their tripod got caught in the track and fell over, smashing the camera, but the film survived and did not have to be reshot. Cooper took a pay cut to help High Noon get made. He received only $50,000 and a share in the profits instead of his usual $250,000 fee. The 37-star flag that the judge removes as he prepares to flee shows that the time frame is between July 4th, 1867 and July 4th, 1877. Fred Zinnemann wanted a hot, stark look to the film. This was achieved by not filtering the sky and having the prints made a few points lighter than normal. And this look was inspired by Matthew Brady's Civil photography. Gary Cooper took the role because it represented what his father, a Montana State Supreme Court justice, had taught him, that law enforcement was everybody's job. Foreman based many of the townspeople's excuses to not assist their marshal against the villain, Frank Miller, on comments made to him in real life when he himself asked for help. The church scene in which Kane begs the townspeople for help was later parodied in Mel Brooks' Blazing Saddles, 1974. Lon Chaney played Kane's weary, debilitated mentor. That's Lon Chaney Jr. But in real life, he was 5 years younger than Gary Cooper and had to wear heavy makeup to make him look older. The name of the town, Hadleyville, is a direct reference to Mark Twain's The Man That Corrupted Hadleyburg, a short story that has some resemblances to High Noon. The film's climax begins with a long pullback from Cooper, walking the dusty streets of the desolate town. Zinnemann did this by using a long crane borrowed from another director. In the showdown scenes, notice a store called Boyd's Hardware. This is a reference to William Boyd, who played the title role in the Hopalong Cassidy TV series since 1952. Look for disc-like motifs that echo the clock images in the wallpaper, the necktie on one of the male characters, and in Grace Kelly's eyelet dress. Things to look for: the repeating images of clocks, which get larger as the time progresses toward noon. Other circular imagery referencing the clocks. In the wallpaper, a necktie, Grace Kelly's white eyelet dress. Cooper's lack of makeup. Note the 37-star U.S. flag, the hot, stark look of the film. Townspeople's excuses for not assisting their marshal, based on Foreman's personal experiences. The church scene where Kane begs for help. Lon Chaney Jr.'s heavy makeup to make him appear older than Cooper. Boyd's hardware store. And High Noon's final scene, with Cooper striding down the town's empty main street to confront Frank Miller to the tune of the film's great theme song. Now it's time to view High Noon. Sit back, settle down. Please remember, it may take a few minutes for the film to roll. Enjoy.